Cancun, a place where palm trees rustle in the wind and sand glistens white under the sun. But this time, there was blood on it. This is where the story of Sativa Transue begins, a girl with a Hollywood smile and a soul that radiated light. Next to her was a guy, Taylor, a walking red flag in human form. The type mothers warn their daughters about, saying, "There's something I don't like about him," while best friends whisper, "Are you sure everything's okay with him?" Imagine November, Thanksgiving Day. Sativa dreamed of the warmth of home, a delicious turkey, and the embrace of family. Instead, she found herself in a Mexican hotel with a boyfriend who had absolutely no self-control. At first, he lashed out at the furniture and staff, and then at her. Just 2 days, and contact with her was lost. No calls, no messages, only oppressive silence. And then a voice rang out, as if from a nightmare, a voice from the American consulate: "Your daughter has been found dead in a Cancun hotel." This is where the real story begins. Not about a passionate resort romance, but about fear and the indifference of the system. About hotel security that heard the screams but did not intervene. About a doctor who wanted to help but allowed himself to be convinced otherwise. About how a heavenly corner turns into hell when you lock a victim there with her tormentor. Sativa tried to escape until the last second, already with a bag on her shoulder. But she didn't make it in time. This is not a romantic story under the palm trees. This is a chronicle of a deadly vacation. Jamie Bolo was going about her daily routine one November morning in 2021. The clock showed 9 when her phone rang. An unknown number. At first she wanted to ignore it, fearing another spam call. But something made her pick up the receiver. And as soon as she said, "Hello," her whole world turned upside down. On the other end of the line was an employee of the U.S. consulate in Mexico. Jamie felt the ground slipping from under her feet when she heard the words, "Sativa Transue, dead, hotel." Sativa, her daughter, who was just on vacation in Cancun with her boyfriend of 3 years. For Jamie, life could have stopped at that moment. But very soon she realized, she needed to act. Find the one who did this. Get justice for her girl. Sativa Transue came into the world on May 19, 1995 in the city of Spokane, Washington. At the age of 12, she moved with her parents to Cheney, a place that would later become her home. She had a younger sister, Michaela, and the girls were inseparable, more than sisters, best friends. Sativa graduated from Cheney High School in 2013, and then entered Eastern Washington University to study sports science. She dreamed of working in the fitness industry and planned to become a massage therapist. In her senior year, her infectious laughter was known to all her classmates. It was for this quality that she was chosen as one of the most charming in her class. And although it sounds like a cliché, Sativa was truly a girl who knew how to enjoy life. She adored sunny days, bright colors, good movies and hearty food. She just knew how to appreciate every moment. June 2017, right after graduation, Sativa moves to Milton, Washington. Despite the lack of acquaintances in the new city, she quickly settles in and makes friends. Her sincerity and charm leave no one indifferent. In particular, they attract the attention of Taylor Allen. They met back in Cheney when they worked together. According to mutual acquaintances, Taylor was the complete opposite of Sativa. She was like a breath of fresh air, energetic and lively. And he seemed quirky from the very beginning. More aloof and reserved than Sativa, but at the time it did not raise concerns. Their couple rather resembled a story about how opposites attract and complement each other. The problem was that Taylor was actually very insecure. He constantly doubted that he deserved Sativa, afraid that she would leave him or cheat. He himself did not fully understand the origins of these fears, but it was clear to everyone around, this was clinical paranoia. In moments of heightened anxiety, he would start monitoring the girl's correspondence through his laptop. Every message she received instantly appeared before his eyes. From the outside, Taylor seemed like the perfect boyfriend, attractive, witty, sociable. But behind closed doors, he was tormented by demons. And very soon he began to isolate Sativa from everyone. Forbade her to see family and friends. And if she still dared to go out to them, then she would get a scandal afterward. In the end, she almost stopped leaving the house, distanced herself from loved ones. As if that wasn't enough, Taylor started using. They only worsened his paranoia. Once in a conversation with a friend, Sativa let slip that in such moments he becomes a complete beast. The girl found herself in an extremely difficult situation, but her boyfriend, apparently, was even deeper in trouble. Moreover, he himself began to sell and came to the attention of the police several times. Once he was even arrested, which should have been the last straw for their relationship. When Sativa's sister Michaela came to visit, Taylor never showed his face to her. But the girl immediately noticed holes in the walls, overturned shelves, smashed furniture, broken glass. She suspected something was wrong, but Sativa kept silent. Taylor completely destroyed their relationship. Sativa found herself trapped, forced to endure his antics, even if with all her heart she wanted to leave. As soon as she would mention it, he threatened to take his own life if she left him. In November 2021, Thanksgiving arrived. Sativa really wanted to spend it with her family. She hadn't seen them for so long and just yearned to be with loved ones. But Taylor had other plans. He organized a trip to Cancun, Mexico, at the same time when Sativa was going to her parents. It is still unclear whether this was a coincidence or a deliberate plan. But many are sure that Taylor effectively blackmailed Sativa into choosing him over family. She felt how isolated she was from everyone. And in the end, she agreed. Sativa adored Cancun, it was her favorite vacation spot. So it's no wonder Taylor chose this particular city. He knew she couldn't refuse. The news of the trip shocked all the couple's friends and relatives. Their former boss, Stacy Shirley, told a story that clarified a lot. According to her, Taylor had a terrible temper. She remembers how once he was assembling a table for her at the office. Something went wrong, he got angry and smashed the furniture with a sledgehammer. This incident showed that Taylor absolutely could not cope with disappointments and failures. And his aggression often spills out on everything around. Furniture is only the first line of defense. A person who had been dating Sativa for 3 years. During this time, she tried to break up with him several times, but each time he found the right words to get her back. Obviously, Taylor had serious psychological issues that he just couldn't deal with. But in the end, Sativa still agreed to that fateful trip to Cancun. She firmly decided, after returning to Milton, she would finally end this toxic relationship. But it never happened. Because Sativa did not return from Cancun. At least not alive. On November 25, 2021, Sativa and Taylor flew to Mexico. And true to himself, Taylor could not refrain from a scandal already at the airport check-in. It seemed that the concept of peace did not exist for him, the vacation promised to be tense from the first minutes. Before boarding the plane, Sativa still wrote to her sister, congratulated her on Thanksgiving and said how much she loved her. And then photos appeared on her social networks, the sun, the beach, her smiling face. It might seem that the girl was sincerely enjoying the vacation. But just a couple of days later, Sativa's worried friends began to call Michaela. Before that, her sister was constantly in touch, sharing impressions and photos. And then suddenly, she disappeared. The phone is silent. And one of the friends told a terrible thing. The last time Sativa wrote that she and Taylor had a conflict that escalated into a physical confrontation. So serious that the girl needed medical help. Relatives sounded the alarm. It had never gone this far before, everyone was at a loss as to how everything could have gone downhill so quickly. They tried to call Sativa, in vain. They wrote, no answer. Anxious hours gave way to even more anxious ones. The girl's phone remained silent. All messages were left unread. At dawn the next day, Jamie, Sativa's mother, was awakened by a phone call that forever divided her life into before and after. At the end of November 2021, on one fatal day, the life of Sativa Transue's loved ones stopped. The American consulate in Mexico called her mother, and the words she heard were like a punch in the gut. Sativa was found dead in a hotel room. Her body was not just lifeless. It eloquently testified to the terrible events that preceded the girl's death. Every inch of her skin was covered in bruises and injuries, the sight of which made one's blood run cold. For Sativa's relatives, an exhausting struggle for the truth began. They tried to figure out how and why it happened, overcoming distances and language barriers. There were more questions than answers, but they were not going to back down. Michaela, the sister of the deceased, together with other family members, collected information bit by bit. Eyewitness accounts, surveillance camera footage, police reports, everything was used to reconstruct the events of that tragic day. And it started quite ordinarily, as much as possible when you are in a foreign country with a person next to whom you do not feel safe. On the evening of November 26, Sativa and her boyfriend Taylor were seen in a restaurant. According to witnesses, everything looked peaceful between them. But this illusion of tranquility was very soon dispelled. After dinner, the couple went to the bar. They drank, and at some point Sativa noticed that Taylor was openly flirting with another patron. For the girl, this was the last straw. All the pain from the toxic relationship, all her attempts to break out of it, all this was negated by one moment of betrayal before her eyes. When Taylor, who was 31 at the time, was caught red-handed, he behaved like a spoiled child. Threw a tantrum, started throwing things and turning everything around. The security of the establishment was forced to throw him out the door. On the way to the hotel, he continued to behave inappropriately, jumping over fences, falling, muttering something incomprehensible. The staff asked Sativa to keep him in the room until morning. But even once in the room, Taylor did not calm down. Soon, calls began to come to the reception, female screams were heard from the couple's room. When the hotel employees went up to the fourth floor, a shocking sight awaited them. Before them stood Sativa with a deep wound on her chin, which stretched for a good 4 centimeters. What exactly happened behind closed doors is not known for certain. But all signs pointed to a brutal skirmish in which the girl was seriously injured. The cut was so deep that stitches had to be applied. Sativa was taken to the lobby, where she was examined by a doctor. At this time, Taylor, being in complete prostration, climbed out of the room window and found himself near the air conditioners. The guards found him there when he was babbling something about jumping from the balcony and could not understand where he was. The staff called the police, but by the time they arrived, Taylor had already been taken back to the room. So it turned out that the law enforcement officers did not talk to him or Sativa then. Perhaps if they had, subsequent events would have unfolded quite differently. While the girl's wound was being sutured, she kept repeating that she had fallen herself. She insisted that Taylor had not hit her, that they loved each other. According to the medic who provided assistance, he suggested that Sativa spend the night in another room. But she supposedly refused. Michaela could not believe these statements. She was outraged that her sister, finding herself in a foreign country, without knowledge of the language, suffered from the cruelty of a man who was physically much stronger than her. In her opinion, Sativa was simply too scared and did not even understand the doctor's offer. The girl was indeed transferred to another room on the first floor to prevent Taylor's attempts to jump out of the window again. And what happened next, no one knows. The only thing that is known, deep into the night, desperate female screams were heard again from the couple's room. But this time, no one called, not even the reception. No one called the police. Everyone who heard those blood-curdling wails just turned away and pretended nothing had happened. The head of hotel security also heard everything. But he did not take any action. The employees of the establishment and the guards were allegedly simply afraid of Taylor, a big guy with outbursts of aggression. They should have been responsible for the safety and comfort of guests, but in the end they were just afraid to intervene. In the morning, Taylor came out of the room, seemingly calm and in his right mind. He informed the administrators that his girlfriend was unconscious. When the staff finally unlocked the door, a horrifying picture opened before their eyes. Sativa was lying on the floor by the bed, face down. From head to toe, her body was dotted with bruises and scratches. A bag still hung over her shoulder. It seems the girl was trying to escape from Taylor, to pack her things and leave. But she did not make it in time. The investigators who arrived at the scene almost immediately realized, Sativa had not just lost consciousness. She was dead. The body was sent for autopsy. The forensic expert stated without hesitation, death was preceded by a brutal beating. The girl was simply unrecognizable. Taylor had beaten her to death with his own hands. On Sativa's body, many traces were found that indicated that she had desperately defended herself. But all her efforts were in vain. A slender girl weighing 63 kilograms had no chance against an enraged Hulk of 100 kilograms. She was defenseless against his unrestrained cruelty. Sativa's death turned out to be so terrible and senseless that her loved ones still cannot recover. They blame themselves for not noticing the signs of trouble in time and not being able to prevent the tragedy. Now the police had to find the killer. And very soon all the evidence began to point to Taylor Allen. He was immediately arrested. Since Sativa was originally from Washington and died in Cancun, the family wanted to bring the body home. In her homeland, they planned to conduct another autopsy and bury the girl where she was born and raised. But the procedure of transporting across the border turned out to be very expensive. The family simply did not have that kind of money. Michaela opened a page to raise funds. She was determined to bring her sister home, give her a dignified farewell, and achieve justice. The girl was not going to give up. She was ready to do anything to ensure that the one who Sativa was, kind, bright, loving, would finally find peace. The only mistake of the deceased was that she endured Taylor's cruelty for too long, not daring to leave. The trial in Sativa's case took place in Mexico. This created additional difficulties. Relatives had to overcome huge distances, face a language barrier, spend a lot of time and resources on flights. On December 8, 2021, the family managed to hire a lawyer who began to cooperate with the prosecutor in this case. And the next day, Sativa's body was finally delivered to the USA. Relatives were able to say goodbye to her and accompany her on her final journey. But the story did not end there. The family was promised that the case would be referred to one of the strictest judges in Mexico. With the onset of 2022, Taylor's defenders requested 2 more months for additional investigation. The court granted this petition. But despite the fact that more than 2 years have passed since then, there is no news about the course of the process. The prosecutor's office demanded the maximum punishment for Taylor under Mexican law for such crimes, 50 years in prison. But why the sentence has not yet been passed is unknown. There are rumors that in a Mexican prison, Taylor tried to join a cartel and bribe someone to get out. But it seems he did not succeed. Sativa's relatives hope that after all these months of pain and tribulation, justice will finally prevail. But Taylor, apparently, was not the only one who should be held responsible for the girl's death. Michaela suspects that Taylor's mother, Rosa Duran, broke into Sativa's apartment after her death and stole valuables, including a safe and keys to both cars. Rosa constantly called the residential complex, begging to be let into Sativa's home. But since her name was not on the lease, the woman was refused each time. Shortly after her persistent calls, someone still got into the apartment. And then Rosa suddenly stopped calling. In addition, it was she who kept Shedl, Sativa's service dog. Although the girl never gave permission for this and was going to pick him up immediately after returning from Mexico. Relations between Rosa and Sativa have always been strained. The girl believed that Taylor's mother constantly controls her son and tries to manipulate them both so that after the vacation they move closer to her. It seems this woman also has to answer for her actions. Michaela set herself the goal of helping women who find themselves in toxic relationships, like her sister. She wants to teach them to recognize the warning signs and not be afraid to ask for help. The girl believes that Sativa would want her story to change someone's life and save someone from making the same tragic mistake. Michaela vowed not to stop until no woman has to go through what her sister endured. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Until next time, friends.